Thank you for joining us today for our demo on how to master data cleansing with Cloudingo. Everyone has experienced poor data quality and its results, and today what we're going to do is to show you how you can streamline data cleanup and eliminate data redundancy, how to import clean data with confidence, and how to automate tedious tasks. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Cloudingo dashboard. What you're seeing here is the dashboard that you would see when you first logged in. And as you can see over on the left, all of our licenses will allow you to connect both a production org and a sandbox. So if you'd like to test things in a sandbox and then upload them to production, you're welcome to, and it gives you a nice, safe environment to test in. We also have a wide range of tools that we talked about. We're going to cover deduplication, how to identify and merge duplicates. We do have convert filters, which help you identify duplicates between leads and contacts. We have a quick search when you're looking for just a specific record and maybe someone has sent you the IDs or they're more hard to find and you don't want to work with an entire dashboard or an entire filter. You can go specifically to the records we're looking for. One of the most common uses of Cloudingo is this import function where you can take a CSV file, import it with Cloudingo, scan for existing records, which we're going to cover in our duplicate cleansing, so that you're just importing clean, unique records and adding a campaign or updating your existing records. We have a find data function just to show you some of the additional options that you have with Cloudingo. Find data, instead of importing records, allows you to take a CSV file, use the Cloudingo search functions to identify the records that already exist in Salesforce, and you tell us what field values you'd like to return. So for instance, if you find existing accounts that you want to target, you could then ask to return the account status or the account type as well as the owner, any other information that would be helpful. Then for some of the more common tasks that Cloudingo can help you both to improve your data quality and to automate to save you time in the future, we have updating filters, which would allow you, instead of building filters for the process of removing duplicates, but actually to update records, and we'll cover that more in depth in just a few moments. Update matching records, for instance, would you like to update contacts from their matching account? You can build filters specifically for the routine process of deleting records or as a one-time job. We have the ability to validate your US Postal Service addresses, where we're formatting them consistent with US Postal Service standards, telling you if it's an accurate address. And also, finally, we have an undo restore function, which is unique to Cloudingo. We're going to cover that in a little bit more depth as we go through, so that makes sense to you. But let's dive into the dedupe process and show you how that will work. So initially, you'll see a series of pre-configured filters, and across the top, you can now hone in to specify a specific object you'd like to work with. From here, each filter is just a query looking for duplicate records in your system, and you can edit any of these by copying the original filter. And then we're going to go in and we're going to show you how easy it is to edit it so that you have different ways of looking for matching records. So we're going to walk through a 4-step process to acquaint you with Cloudingo. And the first page is going to be the basics. And this is where you can customize the name of the filter for what you want to see on the dashboard. You can also include something about the matching style, or if you know you're going to want to look just at a subset of records, you might want to include that in the filter name. Then we're going to go to tab 2, which is really the heart of the filter. This is where you'll be able to select from any of your standard or even your custom Salesforce fields to use as match criteria. So we're going to remove the email since we're including that on other queries, and we're going to just add the company name. You'll notice we can start typing, and you will have both the display name and the API name in parentheses. You can make certain that you've selected the correct field you are looking for. Once you have the fields, Cloudingo gives you a wide range of different matching styles. And we're going to give you some examples, but you'll see we have different varieties that can be used for different fields. For last name, letters only is a wonderful matching style because that will help you catch records where there's a discrepancy in punctuation or spacing. For instance, De La Rosa could be written with spaces between the three parts of the name, or it could be written all together. You could also have a name like O'Connor, which could have an apostrophe, but it might be left out on another record. So that's an example on how letters only is a great match for the last name field. For your first name field, we have a synonym list. And all you have to do is check to enable synonym matching. And this tells Cloudingo to find formal names as a match for their nickname counterparts. So Robert and Bob, or Catherine with Kathy or Kate, William with Bill or Will. And just so that you'll know, all of the synonym lists are available and they're customer facing. So if there's anything that you would like to customize in the company name clean, the first name synonyms, your address synonyms, you're able to customize it so that the matching styles are designed more specifically to match your own data set. For our company name field or your company on leads, this can also be used for accounts and contacts, for account names on accounts and contacts. Company name clean is designed to ignore articles at the beginning of the field, like the words a and the, which might be included on one version of the company name, but could be left off of another. The second piece that the company name clean helps with would be common corporate suffixes. So words like incorporated, company, limited, LLC, all of those type of terms, it could be written out as the full word. They might be abbreviated, or they could have been left off. And so company name clean will give you a better match. The third piece that it's helpful for is the word and in the ampersand. Sometimes you'll have the word written out, sometimes you'll have this symbol, and Cloudingo can match on that for you. Then we also want to say remove all spaces. This doesn't take the spaces out of the field itself. It just tells Cloudingo that if you have a difference in spacing, for instance, two words could be written together almost like you see it on a website, or they could be written formally as the multiple separate words, we would still find that as a match for you. We're going to include another common field where we have a helpful matching style for you, and that's any of the street fields that you have in Salesforce. So the street on the lead, the billing street on the account, or the mailing street on the contact. If you use the fuzzy match, we're also going to include a three-part synonym function. So we have directions, north, south, east, and west. Could be written out as the full word, but they could also have been abbreviated. And we can find all of those as matches for you. And then street suffixes like avenue, boulevard, road, even the word street could be written out, but it could also be abbreviated for you. And we can find that as a match. And the last piece would be street names that are numbers. So for instance, 5th Street could be written as 5th or FIFTH. And the Cloudingo fuzzy algorithm, when you use it with streets, is specially designed to help you with those pieces of the address. Finally, you have the ability to say match on empty. And how match on empty is helpful is if you use it on a field where it's just not a required field, so it may not be consistently populated. It means that if the two records have values, they have to match with the matching style you've chosen. But let's say one record has a value and another is empty, but it matches on the additional fields you've chosen as matching styles. You would still get to see that as a match. It would also include matches where none of the records have a value. So the match on empty is a nice way to expand your match for records that don't have a discrepancy for a particular field, but it may not be populated. Now, the other time that match on empty is very valuable for customers is when you have an ID field that ties into another system. For instance, if you have an ERP system and you say, well, we don't want to merge records that have both been created in the other system. So we would need it to be an exact match or to be blank. And then you're going to use the record with the value that's syncing to the other system as the master. And we'll show you how to do that in your merge rules. So just know that in addition to these that we've covered today, we have a wide range of different matching styles that you can use, some for specific fields like Phone North America, which would ignore differences in punctuation, spacing, a +1 that could be appended, could have been left off. Phone International, where we know that different countries have different number of digits and country codes at the beginning. So it's a little better suited for widely international subsets where you're looking at phones. We have a domain that you can use either for the email or the website, and even a URL match. So know that between the combination of fields that you get to choose and the matching style that you would like to apply, we can identify matching records just about any way that you would like. Next, we're going to go down to the third and fourth tab, which are completely optional. The third tab allows you to limit the subset. So as an example, sometimes people want to break up their filters by geography, either for the information you might have available for the different geographies, or just for how you want to handle the records when we get to the merge rules. So a common example of this would be if you only want to look at records from a certain country. Once again, you have all of your standard plus any custom fields available here to use to limit the scope. And we have options like equal. You can then do the reverse not equal and have the opposite subset. Contains or does not contain. For instance, if you wanted to exclude records when you're merging contacts with your own email domain. Starts with, ends with, or even require a field to have a value at all, or to be blank for that field to be considered in this filter. Next, we're going to go to tab 4, which is even more advanced. Whereas tab 3 limits the entire subset. For instance, we only want to look at records in either the United States or Canada. So we're just having a filter for North American records. The fourth tab lets you put a requirement around the individual groups or sets of duplicates. And the simplest example for this one would be if you're just getting started running automation and you say, so to begin with, we've tested our rules and we would be very comfortable going ahead and scheduling this nice tight lead filter for automation. But in the beginning, we only want to have groups of 5 or fewer records that we schedule to be auto merged. So that means everything in this filter would have 2, 3, 4, or even 5 matches, but you would not have any groups larger than that. And of course, then you could copy this filter, and if you wanted to spend a little more time reviewing those, do another one for greater than or equal to 6. You can also place group rules around specific fields. So for instance, if you wanted to find all of the groups where you have at least one qualified record, we could say at least one record has to have an exact value, and that's qualified. And then maybe in our merge rule, we're going to make that the master and merge the other records into this. Or you could even limit this if you wanted to clean up your newest duplicates first by saying that the create date for at least one record has to have been within the last certain number of days. For instance, the last 30 days would say, let's find all of the sets of duplicates where one of the records was created in the last month, but then we're going to see all of our matching records too. Unlike if you were to use a 30-day create date in tab 3, we would be only looking at sets where all of the records were created within the last 30 days. So that gives you a good feel for how specific or how general you can get with Cloudingo to identify exactly what you consider duplicates in your database. Next, what we're going to talk about is the second piece of the equation, which is how would you like to merge the duplicates? And in the beginning, we're going to give you a default. So when you're looking at the records in your initial filters, what you'll see, and we're going to start at tab 3, is the newest by modified date being chosen as the master. And then to make sure you always get the most complete record, we're saying to override any blank fields on the master so that if there's a value available on another record, we're filling it in. And so this would be if you have more than one record with a value. For instance, your master doesn't have a mobile phone, but you have 3 duplicates and they all have mobile phones. Would you like us to choose the newest based on modified date, based on create date, the most common? And when we talk about imports, you can even tell Cloudingo specifically to fill in information if there's a blank field from your import record. Now let's talk about some other master selections because you do have a wide range available. And remember, your master record is where we take the original Salesforce ID. It's also where we're going to take the initial field values if you don't build in a different rule. And so we have a wide range of options. And one of them, as you saw, was to use the modifier, the create date. But you also have the ability to choose based on any date field you would like. So for instance, when people are merging contacts, often they'd prefer to have the newest based on most recent activity, and that's more relevant than a modifier or create date when someone gets to a contact stage. So you have all of those available choices, but we also have a wide range that don't rely on dates. So protected records. This is useful when you have community user or portal accounts. Cloudingo will automatically protect those, and you would see it when you're reviewing the records by a little padlock and a person symbol on the top of the page. And so we can automatically choose the protected record, which is necessary for the link to still be available after the merge. You can prioritize by any important field and its values. So this is a good example where on a lead, you might want to say, well, we'd like to look at the statuses. What you see here is my demo org, but we're actually going to pull values for any of these fields based on what you have in Salesforce. So you could say, if we have a qualified record, somebody's very carefully worked that. So we'd like that to be our master because we know it's going to have very accurate results. But our second choice, if there's no qualified record, would be if somebody is currently working with one or it's been contacted. And so you get to put your own values in a rank order for selecting the master, which is your baseline. Another option you have is to say the first record with a value in a chosen field. And this is what you would use if you do have an external ID that you've chosen to match on empty, for instance, a NetSuite ID, and we need that record to be the master. So now you can be comfortable that that record will be chosen as your baseline. It's still going to sync with the other system. And then the records that were blank for that field would be merged into this record. You can choose based on any numeric field, the highest or lowest in an important field. And finally, we have some more general options. The most complete record would be the record with the most fields populated. A little different take on that would be, instead of counting the numbers of fields that are populated, we could count the attached objects. So notes, attachments, activities, tasks. If you're merging accounts, that would include contacts and opportunities. So any one of those options can be used for you to customize how you'd like to select the record to be your master record. Now, we next talked about this to make sure that you always get the most complete record. And then the third section comes blank to begin with, but this is designed to let you really customize your final record. And you can create rules for the import process, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, or for your merging on your dashboard duplicates. And the third section lets you place any fields that you want to handle differently. So let's say that we want to add a numeric field, the revenue field. Because this is a numeric field, we're going to have choices like the highest, the lowest, or even choosing a sum, as long as it's not a system determined or a formula field. So the idea is you can choose any field that you'd like to handle differently from the master, just add it here, and the rules for handling the field will be based on what type of Salesforce field it is. So we're going to give you a few examples just to let you start thinking. A lot of times the source field is one that people want the original source, because while you want newer information for most of the fields like the phone and the address, the marketing team may say, well, we need to know where the customer came from in the very beginning. So we want the oldest source based on create date. And you can still prioritize fields like a status field, even if you're choosing the master with a different method. And it works the same way. You put the values in any rank order that you want. For text fields and for multi-select pick lists, you're going to have the ability of choosing a description, of choosing a combined list. And description is just a good example. Comments would work the same way. And you'll get to choose how you would like to separate the value from each of the records. So I've chosen other, where we can have a bar. If it's a multi-select pick list, of course, you'll want to select the semicolon, but you can see you have a wide range of options available. Phone is included is the opposite of a text field. While we can't give you a combined list because it's a formatted field, you can still add a field to your specific field value section just for the purpose of capturing those extra field values. So what we've done is we've added the phone field, just chosen the default field rule and default override option, and then in this actions column, we actually have two different ways for you to capture the information right on your Salesforce record. One is to tell us just to combine the field values into another field. So you could choose any text field, even something generic that everyone already has. Just tell us how to separate the information, because we're not going to overwrite what's already there. How you want to divide that from anything else that comes into the field in the future, if you want to include the master value or not, to remove duplicate entries. And if you are including the master, you probably want to say remove duplicates that are the same as the master. So this lets you choose a specific field for capturing the extra information or the additional values in. And another method where it's still captured in Salesforce is to come over here and tell us to create a field note. And with the field note, at the time of the merge, if you have additional options, and phone, going back to phone is a good example. So let's say that you had different mobile phone numbers on the different records, and we don't want to lose any of that. So you can tell Cloudingo to create a note. What happens then is at the time of the merge, we actually attach a note to your Salesforce record that's called a Cloudingo note, so your users can tell it came from a merge. It would say phone and list the phone number chosen for the phone field, but then it's going to say others and list each of the different values. So you don't have to worry that anything has been lost in case a user prefers a different version or a different value. Also, with the note option, you can add as many fields and it just creates a single note but separates it by field. So if you have several fields where you want it to still be available, for instance, different phone numbers, if you're merging records with different emails, all of those things that you may still want actually on the record to be available, but you don't necessarily have a specific field, you can capture it all in a note, and it will be a single note per merge. Now, we do have an additional way to capture information. This is a little bit different, but it's really valuable if you're doing an initial cleanse. So maybe you're cleaning up accounts for the first time in ages, and you've identified duplicates, you've put your merge rules in place, but you say, you know what, down the road, if someone comes back and has a question and says, wait a minute, I thought this was a different account type or had a different owner, think about any field values that you'd like to capture the value from each record before the merge on an audit report. The audit report can be generated. It's over here on your reports dashboard that you'll be able to access in your reports section. And the audit report can be run going back as far as a year. But remember that Cloudingo does not store your data. Your data lives in Salesforce. So initially, all we're going to capture for the audit report would be things like the Salesforce ID for every record, the date and time of the merge, what the record was it a lead, a contact, an account, or if you're using one of our professional or enterprise licenses, you'll have access to merging custom objects as well. So it would capture the account record type and then who the Cloudingo user was. But you can customize these by adding as many fields as you want because these reports can be generated either as CSV files or PDF files. So it gives you a wonderful way to go back and look things up that you didn't want to clutter up the record with because chances are no one would ever need, but you'd like to have it available for future reference if someone should come and ask you about it. Now, our final two options in this section, while you're merging records, you do have the ability to standardize by using title case, lowercase, or uppercase. You also have the ability to tell Cloudingo to remove white spaces. This is most commonly wanted at the beginning of fields where blank spaces would throw off your reporting, but you could also do this at the end of fields by removing trailing white spaces or even all extra redundant spaces within a field. So those are two nice options that you can set up here in your merge rules and have that automatically happen when you're merging your records. Now, the last option that we're going to show you is when we can group fields together. And for this, we're going to go back to tab 2, which is creating field groups. The field groups are useful for two different purposes. One is that if you have fields that need to be handled as a block for accuracy, for instance, commonly people want to group address fields together so that the street, the city, the state, the zip, and the postal code all come from the same record. So you don't have part of one address being filled in with blank fields on another record. So you get to choose the controlling field and then select as many fields as you want included in a group. This little checkbox tells Cloudingo to display these together on your merge grid. You can choose a nice, simple color-coded option so that when you're looking at your merge grid, it's immediately evident that those fields were part of the same group. And then you're going to have additional options for populating those fields. You don't have to have anything. You could just have them handled as a group based on the master. Or in this example, we've chosen to say, let's use the most complete by these grouped fields. So let's take the address from the record that has most of those 5 fields populated. Now, another way that grouping fields is important and useful for you, if you have validation rules or reasons or triggers where you need to say, for instance, if you have a certain status for a record, it had to have had a qualifying reason. And so you need those to be handled as a group so you always have the reason that applies for the change or the status. You can include as many groups as you want, but this is completely optional. It's here to help you if you need it, but not at all a requirement. So now that we've looked at the merge rules, we're going to go back and show you what it looks like to view your duplicate records on the Cloudingo dashboard. And for this purpose, we're going to move over and look at contacts that match on email and last name. You'll notice hovering over, you'll see the number of groups and the number of matches. And what that means is that if we merge all 31 duplicates we've identified, it would leave us with 11 unique records out of that 31. Now, unlike Salesforce, Cloudingo allows you to merge groups of up to 200 copies of a record with a single click. And so you'll notice that by default, we have the highest number listed at the top, the lowest at the bottom. You can always resort those however is most comfortable for you. And when you'd like to review the records, and this is an excellent way to make sure you're happy with your merge rules, you're going to click the red box with the white icon, the white arrow. And what we're doing now is displaying the fields that are actually on the records in Salesforce at this moment in time. So you can see the first we have your column with your rows, your field headers. Next to that is a blue merge preview. The merge preview is showing you what the final record would look like if you merge the records right now. Then we can see all of your duplicate records. We've got the master selected based on the merge rule. All of these are included. If you prefer a different version, you can select. You notice you do have a radio button that would draw your attention to any field with differences, but you can also do inline editing. Maybe you just know this customer prefers to go by Al. And so even though that was not one of your choices, you'd like to update that in your merge preview. This is how you can edit the rules without going all the way back. You can just click to edit the rules. You do have the ability to customize the display. So you can collapse empty rows, equivalent rows. You can change the column width to whatever is most comfortable so you don't have to keep resizing. You also have the ability to reorder fields. So we have the ability to say how we want our fields to be displayed. And some of the little tips would be to put your contact ID above the contact full name and the account ID below the account so that you actually have the hyperlink to open any records that you'd like to see in another tab. And you can come back and work from them in Cloudingo. You can make fields bold that you want to stand out. You don't have to know where your fields are. You can start typing in, click search, and then you'll notice all of my fields with the word phone in it. So I could just type over and change the order. I could say we don't use the other fields. We want to make that 75 to move it out of the way. Reorder. You can spot check before you move on, make anything bold that you would like to, and now we're going to save. And these preferences are preserved when you go into any other filters of this object type. So it's kind of a one-time setup unless you decide you want to move other fields up to make it a little more convenient to work with. Now, since we leverage native Salesforce, you'll notice we're going to show you, we have notes and attachments on each of these duplicate records, but all of that is being pulled into the final record. And we can see that over here. You can hover over to view what's on the final record. If you're happy, you can go ahead and submit the merge. And at the time we submit the merge, we're actually calling the command with the changes we've made to merge these records in Salesforce. And you're going to get a real-time confirmation in your activity stream. So the newest would be on top to let you know that the merge had successfully completed, or an update if we were just trying to update one or more of these records and then say just save instead of merging. And we'll show you how that works too. You can come in here and maybe I'm not ready to merge these, but I say, I know her full name is Sarah. So I just wanted to save this record. So I can say just save. If I didn't want to include this record, I could deselect it, and then I could still go ahead and merge the rest of the records. Now, while you get confirmation here, you're also going to get real-time updates if something were to fail, and you'd see the reason that we get back from Salesforce. So for instance, if you submit a merge and there's missing required field, it would let you know that right here. But you're also, when you run automation, going to have your full reports dashboard where you can download an activity stream errors and warning report, so that if anything was skipped because of an exception in your merge rules, or because it failed for one reason or another, you would actually be able to go in, find out why, and then correct those records. Now, this is a wonderful time to show you our undo restore function to bring things full circle. So you would need to set this up at the beginning. By default, it always comes disabled because the undo restore requires Cloudingo to back up your data at the time of the merge. So you can either back it up on the Cloudingo storage system, you could back it up in our Amazon or Azure account, or you could choose to do the backup in your own Amazon or Azure account. Now, the backups are fully encrypted, so you would have to restore using the Cloudingo restore function. And you'll get to tell Cloudingo whether we just want to back up merges or also converts, the objects to track. You can tell us what degree of backup for the notes and attachments. The deeper the backup, the longer, a little bit longer it's going to take for us to do the backup at the time you submit the merge, but that choice is up to you. Many customers don't want to do a backup when they're doing imports, so you have the ability to exclude the backup while you're doing imports and just doing it for merges and converting. And finally, the retention period. The retention period comes as a default of 30 days. And the 30 days would be the time that you have to come in and tell Cloudingo to restore the records, which means we recreate them to the state when they were merged by using the field values that we've backed up from each of the records merged and reparent those child objects. So once we save this, and I actually had it enabled, so we're going to be able to go in and we're going to go to your reports dashboard and show you how this can work. So we restore through the merge convert report. We're going to give this a moment to load. These reports can be generated as a graph on your dashboard for different time periods, or you can come in and choose to run the full report. So we're going to say we want to see the full report so that we can restore a group. You can tell these were contacts. This was my master, so that's a hyperlink to the winning record, but all of the other records in the group are included here. You can tell these were contacts. It was a merge, and we're going to go in and say we'd like to restore these, and this is Snow at Disney. So it's telling me, okay, that would be 4 records that we're going to put back to the values before the merge, 47 leads that were behind those for converted leads merged with them over time, 110 notes, and 30 tasks. And I can say, yes, that's what we would like to do. So now we're in the process of recreating the records as they were at the time that I just merged them. As I say, that time period is available as a default of 30 days. You can, of course, shorten it, or you can extend it as long as 45 days if you would like. Now we want to, while we're here, we'll just very quickly show you a few other reports on the dashboard. And so if we come here to our reports dashboard, and that group was successfully restored. The audit report is the report that I was telling you. You can capture any number of fields that you would like to. You can see we color code them as a graph, but when you run the full report, any fields that you tell us to capture on it, so you can see I've added additional fields like the mailing address, the account name on an account ID on the contacts. So you get to tell us as many fields, and then these can be exported as CSV files or PDF files, going back as far as a year if you ever needed to. Just remember to include the values in this report, you need to include them on your merge rule. But once that's set up, it's in place. Now we're going to visit the import wizard, which is another very common tool used in Cloudingo. And the good news is our import wizard is going to use everything that you've just learned about identifying duplicates. So we can use all of the filters from the dashboard to scan for existing records. You can either walk through it as a single time file where we're going to choose what a name. You can choose the object. It can be contact and lead. What this allows you to do is say, first, we want to look to see if the contact exists and identify if we find the account. If we do, you could create a contact instead of a lead if you wanted. And if we find the contact, if you'd like to update information like adding a campaign, you have the ability to merge them. Then we would do the same and scan the list with the remaining records that were unique to identify if any of them exist as leads. And you can use all the filters that you've created, or you can create a new filter on the fly if it's a unique list that may need to be matched using other criteria. You can also import the other objects and any custom objects that you have enabled with your professional or enterprise license, you would be able to import also. So this is just showing you that they would be available on the import dashboard. You then can attach the file, and we're just going to go back to my imports and say, let's attach a contact file. We're going to I'll go ahead and use leads. I didn't change it. If you'd like to add a campaign, you can add a Salesforce campaign. You'll be able to select it from here. You can choose what campaign status, so you don't need it mapped on your file. You can then tell us, are you just trying to create new campaign members? For instance, if you're pre-marketing to a list, maybe before a trade show or a webinar. You can also update existing campaign members. So for instance, maybe you've already attended the trade show, you've done some pre-marketing, but now you've seen people who both were registered before and just new customers who stopped by and you met at the time of the show. You'll be able to select a lead status. This allows you to not map the status even though it's a required field. You're going to have your own statuses to choose from. If you ever wanted to create a note, you could. Next, we're going to map our field columns. They're going to automatically map based on your field name. So this is the column header from my file, and I can say what field. You have a sample of your field values here to make sure, and this is my contact list, so they were not named properly. So you just select the fields from Salesforce. This would be last. You can choose to save your mapping once you've entered it all. This would be company. So that if you use this format again, you don't have to go through and map, that you just have it available. Anything that you don't need to map, you can just come in Cloudingo and say, don't include the import files that are not mapped. Next, you're going to get a preview, which looks like your CSV file, but it's going to show you how you have the field values mapped to your Salesforce fields. If there's anything you need to edit, or for instance, if you have a missing required field, like a last name is missing or a company name is missing, you'd have a red box around that, and you have the ability to go in here and make any adjustments. Or if you have a restricted pick list and the value on your file was not on your pick list, you could change it out. So that's the purpose of this tab. And then the next tab will allow you to scan to see which of the records already exist. So as you'll notice, you can select, I said we were doing leads, so I have all of my lead filters from the dashboard, and I could say email and last name is sufficient. The merge rule, remember we looked at those merge rules. Many customers want to create specific merge rules, maybe selecting information to fill in blanks from the import file specifically. You have the ability to automate as much of the process as you would like automatically merging duplicates and automating creating new unique records if you're doing a single scan, or if you're doing multiple scans. And we're going to use these rules just to show you what it looks like. All of these will be duplicates in my system, I suspect. You have the ability to manually review as much as you would like. And of course, the first time through, we highly recommend you review to make sure you've chosen the right combination of fields for your filter, to identify the records if they exist the way you want to, and to make sure that your merge rule is set up the way you want to create the final record. But you'll also have the ability to automate this process. And one of the benefits of the professional or enterprise license, if you're someone who does a lot of repeat importing, you can build a template into place where you say, here are the filters we want to scan, what we want to do to handle the records and create duplicates. Now, this blue icon means it's an import record duplicate only. I found duplicates on my import file that don't exist in Salesforce. You can see we scan, all of these were duplicates on my import file. I had unique. If you do have duplicates on your import file, you can merge them so that you're just creating a single unique record instead of, for instance, creating, I said, Bee and Bugs Bunny, if it's the same email. And if you wanted to review the records, going to the merge preview will let you see based on your merge rule. And of course, this is a duplicate demo org, so we have lots of duplicates in here. You'll be able to see the records, which one is in Salesforce, which ones are on your import file. You can see these are import data duplicates, and these are the records that were already in Salesforce. So the merge preview is showing me if I were to go ahead and merge these right now, what would the final record look like? You can spot check, you can edit your rule if you need to. If you had a small list and you were wanting to do manual selections, of course you could choose a different value, but the best process, unless you just want to manually review them, is to be able to edit your rules to handle them. And then we can submit merge. So those are all being handled. Now, when this is done, we're going to go back, and I just did a sample so you'll be able to see what it looks like. We've returned the ID for the records that were merged. If I wanted to push the unique records, I could filter for everything that's left, and I'm going to do them all, but in real life, you would only push the unique ones. And then when you say push, that's the process of creating the new record, and it's going to actually return the Salesforce ID that it creates. So whether it was a lead or a contact, it would show you. this is a lead list, so these are lead IDs. And in the end, you can export a report that would show which ones were found as duplicates and which ones were merged versus which ones were pushed, meaning in the real world, it would be your unique records. Now, the way the automated template can work for you, if you have a repetitive process, we're going to go back and I'm just going to show you what that looks like. I could take a file and I'm going to take my contacts. I'm going to open it. And now I have different options built out. And this is going to be, I'm going to auto merge my contacts. So I'm taking these records and scanning them through a process that I've already set up with how I want to handle them, both if I find duplicates and if I just have unique records. So you can get just as detailed as you were with the manual process, but just upload a file and use a template that you've already put in place, which is super handy for people with recurrent imports from a consistent source where you can have all of that mapped and even include a campaign if you would like to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we just want to show you a couple of the other tools. We talked about automating some of those recurrent processes so that it takes the tedium and saves you time. You can create update filters almost for your imagination. You can format data by saying we'd like to format title case. We're going to go in and edit to show you the options. Title case, lowercase, uppercase. You can also format phone fields. You can standardize state names to state countries or countries to state names. So we have a wide range. You can put in any condition for which records you want to update. And I'm just using has a last name, has a value, as a requirement that would pull up all of my records since that's a required field. And now you can see I've chosen to do a transform. I wanted to use title case. We can trim white spaces. As I say for addresses, you can format the name to the state code or the state code to the state name. We also have a list of countries built in to do the same thing. You can format phone fields however you would like. Tell us how you'd like to handle extensions. So all of these type of jobs, updating owners when someone has left, you could build a filter that you have in place for update this owner ID to another owner ID. Any of those routine jobs. And you can schedule these data maintenance jobs to run on an automated basis, just like you would schedule other jobs by saying we want to recalculate, which just refreshes them so you can see the records and make sure it's handling them the way you would like. Or you can actually schedule automation so that this just goes in on a routine basis and processes the records. This is an example of updating owner, where you can say we want to take one owner and update it to another. If you have a filter like this already created, you can check the records to make sure that it's doing it properly. For instance, if someone has left, you can see both the current record, what you have, and what you would like to update it to. We have delete jobs, as we mentioned in the beginning. We have update matching records, where if you ever have a scenario when you're not trying to update, where you're not trying to merge duplicates, you would just like to update some field value on them. Or as I say, if you wanted to pull in information from the account onto the contacts that are affiliated with that account. The address validation would compare the address that you have to US Postal Service deliverable addresses so that if you wanted to update them, it's correctly formatting the zip +4, the 2-letter abbreviation, the correct street abbreviations like Avenue, Boulevard, all of that. So it compares the record that you have to what the Postal Service has is the correct version. And of course, these filters can be automated so that this then would pull out of queue once it's been validated, so it doesn't have to be validated again. So at this point, we want to thank you for joining us. Remind us that anytime you would like, you can create a trial with Cloudingo to get a scan of your database. You also have the ability to contact support at any time. So we're going to go back to our main dashboard and just show you a few common help tools. Over here where you have the question mark, our knowledge base brings up the Cloudingo help site, but when you access it from within your Cloudingo app, will take you to the section that you're currently working with. We have both video help and text help, depending on how you'd like to learn. You can actually see a step through guide to walk you through the import process or how to build out any of the customized types of filters. You can also submit a case to our support team anytime you would like by clicking here, telling us what your question or what the problem is, and it will go directly to the support team so you can get information. We have a wonderful Get Started that would walk you through all of the basics if you happen to be new to Cloudingo, or maybe you're just connecting a new sandbox and you want to start from scratch so that you can learn how to set things up in it. This Get Started guide would walk you through the process. We thank you so much for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Someone on our team would be happy to work with you and to discuss your specific goals and scenarios a little more customized for you. And we look forward to speaking with you again.